Great to see you.
Great to see you.
So, I think a lot of people in the room will know you, will have seen you speaking before, or you can do business with you. But if you can just give us a brief outline of your job and your responsibilities at CenturyLink for those who are maybe not so familiar.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm the Chief Technology Officer for CenturyLink. Our team defines our long-term technology strategy, selects that technology, does all the engineering and certification work for that, basically builds the templates for how we should be constructing our network to support the services that we offer. We also build the software layers that sit on top of the network for our network control systems, for SDN and NFV. We also build our virtualized platforms, as well as have corporate security.
Okay, excellent. So obviously we're here at the big 5G event, and CenturyLink is not a mobile operator. Mm-hmm. So what does 5G mean for CenturyLink? Well, what does this mean for your business? What does this mean for your strategy?
Yeah, we are not a major holder of spectrum. So I don't think we would classify ourselves with the other major wireless providers. We do some wireless. We own and operate spectrum in Latin America. It's an important access technology for us. And we're deploying some of the 5G technologies, even in North America today, but okay. It's for certain applications. For us, 5G is primarily a supporting role to the major wireless builders out there to provide the infrastructure for their network. So we're fiber rich, so we can provide the fiber to connect the radios into the network for both front haul as well as back haul from the access network. We also have a significant amount of space and power infrastructure that we can offer for the virtualized RAN or edge services that need to run in that infrastructure. Having come from a legacy of a telco, we've got 3,500 locations with space and power to make available for helping with the builds. Okay. So it's primarily that infrastructure play.
Okay. Now you mentioned there that you do have some wireless infrastructure in rural areas. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because that sounds like an important part of the knowledge and skill set that CenturyLink might have to be able to understand what the actual mobile operators are going through in their rollouts.
Yeah, so we're in the process of deploying technologies under the 5G umbrella, right? It's not 5G NR, but we're deploying 64 by 64 MIMO. We're deploying beamforming with 8 and 16 layers with pretty narrow beam widths of less than 10 degrees. We're deploying channel aggregation. So we're using that set of technologies. It's for the rural deployments where it just doesn't make financial sense for us to build fiber out into farming communities. Okay. So we're using CBRS. We are in our initial deployments. We've got 3 towers up now, working on the next 25, and putting additional towers in the funnel.
Okay. And so I guess with those deployments, before we come on to the supporting infrastructure and services and what you're doing there, in those wireless deployments, I guess the kind of applications that appear in the big marketing pushes for 5G, the virtual reality, yeah, et cetera, those are not the kind of things that people are talking about in the rural areas, I'm guessing.
No,
it'd be fun if they were.
Yeah, no, it's not. It could be, potentially. We're deploying for a fixed wireless application. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to separate, the marketing from the reality of where 5G is today. For us, 5G is a really important technology, and something that we plan to leverage and we plan to help others leverage. I think it's important for the next set of applications that are coming out. But I think it's overhyped. It's overhyped in the industry. We are our use case is as a part of the Connect America Fund. So we take in funding to help subsidize builds in rural America. The speeds that we're delivering and have to deliver will be at a minimum 10 meg download speeds. Okay. So barely even broadband under today's definitions, and 1 meg up. Now, certainly the technology can go higher than that, but what we found is that, and keep in mind we're at 3.5, we're generally deploying on macro towers, but it's it's inconsistent performance at best, right? So you can go out, and I've personally gone out and driven some of the deployments in a car and seen the tests run. You can have a set of homes in line. You know, one of the homes will be getting 80 meg, which is great for rural America, fantastic. The home behind it will be getting a meg. So the experience is very much like what you might see with your cellular phone today, right? Some areas have great performance. Some areas have low performance. Some areas have no coverage. So I think we just need to be realistic about what the technology can do. Now, it will improve, but it is a wireless technology subject to the propagation effects of radio signals.
Okay.
So.
Okay, but I would imagine probably the enablement of services like remote medical care and so on and so forth is going to be pretty important using those technologies.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure I'm there with that. You know, I saw a presentation from one of the big wireless builders. I won't call out which one, that showed a remote surgical device.
Oh, I meant giving, yeah.
Oh.
Not surgery, but I mean providing a consultation so somebody's not having to come a long way.
Oh, yeah, certainly, yes. For those, for remote medical assistance, medical consultation, absolutely. Having a broadband speed that's capable of doing video and collaboration like that, absolutely.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about what CenturyLink has been doing, say, in the past couple of years in terms of its strategy, but also its deployments to support the wholesale customers you have in 5G? What have you actually done to the network in terms of technology deployments or in terms of changing the topology of the network?
So we're an infrastructure provider, as I mentioned. So we build fiber. We build a lot of fiber. We have a lot of fiber. We also have the advantage of having a consumer customer base, a broad enterprise customer base, everywhere from small business up to large enterprise. We support the wholesale market pretty heavily. And so when we model today, when we model our fiber builds, we take all that demand set into consideration for how we build fiber. So wireless towers are now part of our fiber planning. And so we do take that into consideration. We hit quite a few towers today with our fiber infrastructure, and we are eager to help the wireless companies by building more fiber for them to support their deployments, both the macro towers as well as the densification.
Okay. Do you have a single integrated fiber network that's supporting all of those services, or do you still have some fiber networks running side by side that in the end may become an integrated single network?
That's one of the great things about fiber is it's integrated as soon as you consolidate your inventory. And so, as you sort of work from the lower end of the stack to the higher end of the stack, we're a company that's made up of a whole bunch of acquisitions. Right. And so fiber is the easiest thing to integrate from a product offer standpoint, because as soon as you have one place to go and look and see what assets you have and how to splice them together, you can offer an integrated solution with that. Okay.
And then in terms of supporting the mobile carriers with their 5G plans, what has that meant? Are you having to do anything to support the particular front haul technologies or applications that the mobile operators need?
Yeah, so it's primarily today the fiber. We're having space and power conversations with the physical infrastructure that we have out there. And we're sort of now evolving into the application conversations.
Okay.
There are some that want to use our space and power for running virtual RANs, which is good. And then you start to get into conversations about network slicing with 5G. What does that enable from an application perspective? And then how do you approach the market to leverage 5G as one access technology, fiber as another, but how do you start to leverage that to support the applications that customers are now going to be able to deploy with things like network slicing? We're in conversations with customers about leveraging that same physical infrastructure, the fiber and space and power, to do edge compute applications.
Okay. So what does that mean for your actual facilities then? What are you having to do to support that? And are you using any of the models that we've been hearing about in the past few years, like Cord, for example, and taking those kind of blueprints and models to provide those edge compute facilities that are in disaggregated stacks? Or are you not, is that not a model you're following, or are you not there yet?
Yeah, so if you go across the street and one block down, you'll see a 15-story building. That is our Denver central office. The first 10 floors of that 10 years ago would have been filled with equipment. If you go in there now, you'll see empty floors because the traditional telephone switches, the traditional digital cross connects that used to be in there, that footprint is shrinking. And we're actively shrinking it for space and power conservation, as well as making room available for these types of applications. So, you know, we have the infrastructure. Probably our biggest challenge is those buildings were built with, you know, power densities that don't really match what today's compute infrastructure needs. So retrofitting them to support higher density applications is something that we're that will be required to really take advantage of those spaces. But we're using our traditional cloud models as we think about how do we support this infrastructure. We acquired the cloud business from Savvis. We've acquired companies like Elastic Box that give us you know, additional control and automation capabilities in virtualized environments. Those are the things that we're leveraging to build the edge compute virtualized environment to allow wireless customers and or enterprises to run applications.
Okay. And where are you in that process? Is it just in talks and planning, or have you actually made any sort of edge compute deployments? And what kind of requests are you getting from the operators? Are they being incredibly specific? We need this kind of compute platform to be able to support what we're hoping to do?
Yeah, so where we are, I could sit up here and give you the marketing message, right? This says, oh, well, we do edge compute.
Skip that.
Yeah, yeah, we do have servers deployed. You know, we call it our programmable services backbone. It's built on our CenturyLink edge compute architecture. You know, that's in, you know, tens of locations across the U.S. But the conversations we're having now are driving much deeper deployment models. So you talk about retail applications that want to use video in interesting ways. You go to an Amazon Go store and they can use video to check people out. And you know, retailers are looking to use video to map people moving through the stores to drive efficient flows, product placement, to identify suspicious characters that are making, you know, unusual movements in the store for reducing leakage. You know, robotics control in manufacturing facilities, energy control. These are all applications that are driving a deeper set of infrastructure than your normal compute platforms that are deployed out there can support. Those three applications that I just mentioned, the customers are saying they need 10 milliseconds of performance. The internal users of those applications in those companies, they'd love to have 5, but their infrastructure people go to them and say, well, that's not realistic. I can get you 10.
Right.
I'll go talk to CenturyLink about 10. So there's a desire to move down into much tighter performance from a latency and with high capacity to leverage these locations.
Okay. And you mentioned video there. So are you getting any requests from companies that would like you, for example, to set up a virtualized CDN platform in your edge compute facilities? Or do they just want you to provide the platform so they can install that themselves and manage it themselves?
So we have a relatively large CDN network. We do get that ask. A lot of the newer asks are more customer-specific applications. So the customers want to run their custom applications to drive their businesses with low latency to where that compute infrastructure is. They're also looking for performance-managed connectivity from that edge compute location to their more centralized infrastructure, whether that's in a centralized cloud or one of their data centers. You know, they don't want to, this is a very tight performing application for them, so they have performance needs to their end location, but then also from that remote application into their centralized infrastructure.
Okay.
So being able to build and manage that connectivity is an important part of the conversation too.
Okay. And so as we're getting to the point now where 5G services are coming out to market in certain places, I'm sure by the end of 2019, we're going to have a much bigger coverage of 5G availability. What does CenturyLink need to do between now and the end of this year to make sure that you've got the platform and the services to be able to support any ramp up in growth? I mean, I think a few years ago we chatted about the implementation of the first software-defined networking applications. Mm-hmm. Is that now coming into play here, where you have where you can more easily and more quickly, change the kind of capacity requirements that you need to support customers?
Yeah, if I list out what we have to do, we have to build fiber everywhere it comes close to making financial sense. We need to prepare our real estate for an edge compute play. We need to provide the virtualization and cloud infrastructure and management platforms in there. We need to leverage our, as you mentioned, the dynamic connectivity and dynamic capacity type services that we've been building over the last several years to allow customers to not only deploy applications, but then connect those applications to wherever they need to go on demand, within minutes, at whatever capacity they need and whatever service they need. So it's really that end-to-end enablement that we're focused on.
Okay. And is everything in place for you to be able to do that, or are you still in RFIs and RFPs to try and figure out, what do we need to do in terms of, especially the edge compute? Because I think we're going to have a panel about this later on, and there are early implementations, but there's still a lot of different views on how this should be done and actually who should be doing it.
Yeah. So I'll say we're beyond the RFP stage with suppliers. We have a number of offers that we're approaching the market with, and it goes from the very bottom of the stack to a fully managed solution. Space and power, metal as a service, a virtualized, whether it's a VM or a container, to a fully managed cloud platform that we can offer at those edge compute locations. So we're approaching the market with that full suite of capabilities to see where do they want to run their applications. Are they comfortable with a managed cloud type offer? Are they more comfortable with a metal as a service with hardware that meets certain specifications? Or do they not even trust a provider to manage that hardware and the configuration of it? They want space and power. Okay. And so it's going to be all up and down the stack, and we know that we've got to play at all levels. Okay.
And then in terms of the fiber density, obviously there's only so far that any single company can go. Mm-hmm. I mean, how much more are you planning to actually build out your own fiber, and to what extent do you need to find either partners or even acquisitions to push out even further or quicker?
So we're a public company, and we have to manage to our external expectations. Our external expectations are we're going to spend 16% of our revenue on capital. Within that 16%, that's still a few $1 billion. There's quite a bit set aside for fiber builds. And we've announced that just locally here, we're building Boulder, Colorado, with fiber to meet that combined set of demand of consumer, enterprise, and wireless. We will be announcing that we're building other markets here over the next few weeks, and those will continue. And so building fiber is a core part of our business. So we will continue to expand as we see the business cases, as we see the customer demand to build deeper. So we're very interested.
Okay. Well, we're coming close to the end of our time already, incredibly. Any kind of last thoughts or even predictions about how 5G is going to impact the overall communications market in terms of services or where it might go in terms of the players? I mean, are you seeing new companies coming in and talking to you about, okay, we want a piece of this 5G action that you've never seen before?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of 5G suppliers that sort of come out of the woodwork once you start to say you're interested. Absolutely. So 5G is fantastic. Very excited about it. I think it's going to be an enabler for applications we can't even imagine today. I believe personally that, as I mentioned, data wants to get to fiber as quickly as it can. If fiber's an option, that data will go to fiber. But there are real significant use cases for 5G. I'm going to say mobile use cases are perfect. Fixed wireless at the low end of demand, that's great. Performance, networks that require performance and any material amount of capacity, I believe will be fiber.
Okay, excellent. Andrew, we have reached the end of our time. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us that insight. I think that really helps to support the other presentations we're hearing from the mobile operators about what they're doing with their radio access network. So really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Let's give it up for Andrew.